What does this onion have to do with learning Chinese? Well, maybe learning Chinese characters makes you cry and cutting onions makes you cry as well. That's not the relationship I'd like to establish here. I want to talk about your fear of speaking Chinese, because fear of speaking is a huge problem. Many people are not even aware that this is a problem that is holding them back. So many people are not even aware that they're having this problem. And I'd like to dissect this a little bit in this video, and that's where this onion is going to play a role. So first of all, it's totally normal that we experience speaking in another language as something very intimidating. We are suddenly in the role of a 2-year-old child. We want to express something very simple and we can't because we're lacking the words, we're lacking the grammar, we're mispronouncing, we're making jokes that we didn't want to make. Everybody is suddenly laughing and we don't know why. And this is, of course, it's quite normal that this is a situation that brings about lots of different difficult feelings. But many people are not even aware of the fact that they have these feelings. That's students who tell me something like, oh, I have to study more grammar before I can start speaking. Or recently a student texted me, well, my problem is not that I'm afraid, but when I'm trying to speak, I think so much about a sentence because I want that the sentence will be correct, that this is actually holding me back. I would say that's just the same thing. It's just a fear in disguise. Basically, the student is also afraid, but she's like rationalizing a little bit in the way of saying, well, I have to produce a correct sentence because else, whatever, people will not understand me or they will laugh at me or whatever. So if you are watching this video and you're like, no, I don't really have fear of speaking, I'd like to challenge you a little bit. Pause it here and think a little bit, where am I actually procrastinating speaking? Are there situations where I could practice speaking and I don't, or where I'm avoiding this a little bit or postponing this a little bit? And then check like what are the assumptions that are there that might be holding you back? Because obviously speaking is something we have to practice a lot, because for most people that's quite difficult. And just like playing the trumpet, you will have to pick up this instrument at some point and produce horrible sounds. There's no way around it. Yeah, you cannot just go to a trumpet concert and listen to it over and over again and then magically start playing in a very good way. This is not going to happen. So you have to practice. So how do we do that? Many hobby life coaches, hobby psychologists will tell you something like, well, you have to step out of your comfort zone, you have to be bold, and you have to just do it, and so on. And of course, if it were that simple, then we wouldn't need any psychotherapists, right? Because like, somebody with depression, you just tell them, oh, look at how the flowers are blossoming and how nicely the birds are singing. It's not that easy. When you're scared, and there's not so much you can do about it, actually. But there is a hint of truth in this idea of stepping out of the comfort zone. So whenever you have a fear and you do not face it, then this fear tends to increase. So I believe the trick somehow is that we approach these fears step by step. So we get out of the comfort zone, but just a little bit. And that's where this onion comes into play. Because the thing is that our fears are usually a little bit layered, like an onion. Speaking to other people is not the same in every situation. So you might have situations that scare you really a lot, like, I don't know, giving a speech in another language, or speaking to a stranger, or talking to your friends, or whatever it is. Yeah, for most people, these fears are a little bit, structured, layered. Something scares them a lot, and other things just a little bit. This is very individual, so you cannot go and say, yeah, it's the same for everybody. Some people will say, well, talking to a language teacher, totally fine for me. She is paid, she's a professional, she hears people make mistakes all day long, so I'm completely relaxed when I'm talking to my teacher. But when I should speak to friends, like who are native speakers, that's creepy. Or the other way around, that you're like, with my friends, I'm comfortable, I can make mistakes and no problem. But the teacher, stranger, somebody I pay, somebody who expects me to do the homework, well, I don't know, that feels a bit weird. That's very individual. Now, that's what I'd like to invite you to do. Draw your own onion. What are your layers of fear of speaking in another language? Once you have done that, then you can choose deliberately what's the next little thing, the next little challenge you're going to take on. and practice that until you feel a bit more comfortable. So for example, hiring a teacher, talking to that teacher, and then realizing, no, actually it's not that creepy. Maybe at some point I can try to talk to friends, for example, or to another stranger or whoever it is. Sometimes talking to native speakers will scare you, definitely, whoever it is, friends, teachers, strangers, doesn't matter. In this situation, it can be a good idea to talk to other students. Of course, people say, yeah, but then I'm going to learn their mistakes as well. That's true, so you shouldn't do that forever. At some point you should move beyond that. But when you're starting out learning a new language, or you're still at the like A1, A2 level, then talking to other students who also have a limited vocabulary, who also make mistakes, probably similar mistakes to the ones that you're making, can be very encouraging, can be very helpful in overcoming this fear. So don't get stuck there, but this can definitely be an alternative. And if everything feels too difficult or too scary for you, then talking to yourself or to your teddy bear or to Niels can actually help a lot. Because just like with playing the trumpet, you don't need anybody to listen when you're practicing. Yeah, you will get better at playing the trumpet when you're just practicing at home without anybody listening. And it's the same for speaking a foreign language, because much of what we do in a foreign language is also relatively predictable. When people ask you, for example, what's your job? Where do you come from? Why are you traveling here? What are your hobbies? Tell me something about your family. All of this is almost like a script. So you can practice that beforehand, before you're even going to be in a small talk with somebody. You can practice it at home 10 times, 20 times, 35 times, 380 times, doesn't matter. You can practice it at home with your teddy bear, nobody judging you. And this will also help you, believe it or not, try it. It will help you to gain some confidence. Once you've done that, the next creepy thing you might try out is recording yourself on your phone, where like the red button appears and then the clock starts counting the seconds, and that's a little bit creepy, right? You don't need to listen to your recording. Yeah, you can just delete it. Do this 20 times, 30 times, 57 times, and then maybe you dare to listen to it. And then once you've done that a lot of times, maybe you dare to send it to a friend or something like that. Okay, so you can work on this a little bit. You can see what your personal onion looks like. I'd be very curious. Let me know in the comments where you are stuck in this onion right now. And maybe there is something else that I overlooked, something that is holding you back when you're speaking. I'd be very curious to hear that from you.